Look at how hard they try to keep him out the draft. Remember, he said he was growing his faith. So that's what's keeping him up, right? He can see the guy open the door for him. He can see that guy kept the door open for him despite them trying to close it with him doing exactly what they said they was going to do. Cut him with waiver wires, but they didn't do it. And we was having a conversation on X on why they draft to destroy these players. And somebody said that doesn't make sense. Why would they pay these guys millions of dollars and then destroy their careers? I said, so they don't go nowhere else or start their own league. And they were like, well, it isn't easy to start their own league. I'm like, that's what y'all keep saying. But again, another basketball league just popped up. What is it, like 4 or 5 basketball leagues for women now? Just because people take the initiative to put 2 or 4 teams together. That's what they want you to think. And it was like, if the league is 70% black, why should they start their own league? I'm like, because leadership is 90% white. See, people don't want to talk about the truth. Right? So it looks like, despite the fact that they either were messing with him, trying to humiliate him in front of everybody, discriminated against him and holding him back, he's still in the league. He has made it to QB2. And I asked this question, feel free to answer it. Under what circumstances does a 5th round QB play in place of a 3rd round QB? That's a real question. I would love to see your answers. Under what circumstances does a 5th round QB play in place of a 3rd round QB? That's a real question. I asked y'all, how did Tom Brady, who was a 6th round QB, y'all said, how did Tom Brady get his start? Y'all told me how Jalen Hurts got his start, right? It seems like Shedeur is not going to be able to play in place of Dylan, no matter how bad he is, as long as he can play. That's what when you look around the league and you look at how and why they bench people and how rigid they are and use the rounds in the draft they manipulate the rounds in the draft to pigeonhole you. So if I made you a 5th round pick, that's because I didn't want you to get to QB1. But Shedeur had one of the rare occurrences to compete for QB1, even though he was QB5 because he wasn't even on the roster at one point. And he made it all the way to QB2. So he should be happy when he's talking to Bucky. He's happy to see his family. He's happy to sign autographs. I'm happy because I made it to QB2 despite them trying to kick him out. Now, I already know Shedeur's done played in the rain before, Baylor, balled out in the rain, right? I know that Shedeur is prepped and ready to go, despite if he doesn't have first team reps. We know that don't matter because he didn't have first team reps against the Panthers. And on X, people kept saying, oh, he only played against second and third team. I'm like, Shedeur actually played against first team defense with the Panthers. See, a lot of people didn't know that. They just assumed that he didn't play anybody, but they didn't realize he was being set up to fail by playing up higher talent, supposedly. But he came in and he did well. He exceeded expectations against first team defense. So it looks like the Browns are not willing to bench Dylan even if they lose. That they not even willing to let Quashawn Junkins rush the ball. And that Kevin Stefanski's job is not really at risk because this is what they planned for. A lot of people don't realize it. This is exactly what they planned for. They planned for Dylan to be the guy and next year for them to get the guy. So he's the temporary guy. Shedeur was supposed to be their franchise QB. But they don't want that. Because why? They got Dylan because they didn't want to win this year. They have 2 first-round picks already. They have no reason to tank. Tanking to get a 3rd first-round pick is not going to help you in the long run if the head coach only wants a game manager and you draft whether it's Indiana's quarterback or Carson Beck from Miami. They both run, don't they? If you take a dual threat and you let Stefanski break them down to a pocket passer, which is probably what Baker Mayfield wanted out. If that's what you do, you're going to waste 3 first-round picks instead of 2. And look at Mason Graham is injured. First player they drafted. So you can't say we want to get our guy next year. We're going to be solid next year. We can go for a Super Bowl run next year with all of these injuries this year, because you're going to have all of these injuries next year, because you're not trying to win next year either. Your excuse is going to be we're rebuilding. Now, Shedeur can play in any environment. Actually, Shedeur is the quarterback they should have got as the franchise QB for $46 million. Why? Because he can take a terrible team like they were at 3-14 and develop his wide receivers, because they complaining and saying the wide receivers are trash. Now we got to go get some more wide receivers. Shedeur was the perfect quarterback for the Cleveland Browns that the Cleveland Browns don't want to win with because he's black. I have no problem with saying it. If he was white, he would have been drafted number 2 overall, because why? Then there would be 17 or 18 white starting quarterbacks instead of black ones. But because he's black, and the NFL seemingly tried to do everything to stop 17 black quarterbacks from being drafted, because we know we at 16. What they going to do to stop it next year? So what they do this year, they could actually win. They choose not to, because they say they want to use all their first-round draft picks and maybe get another one next year. But if Stefanski's the head coach, is it going to matter? Look at Stefanski's record. It's sub 500. So you're just going to get another first-round draft pick like you got Shedeur, and you're going to waste his talents rather than fire Stefanski. That's just what it is. And people just don't want to admit that. So when Troy Aikman came out and talked about Shedeur riding on the bench and Stefanski being problematic, notice people rushed in to deflect and blame Barry or blame the wide receivers or say Myles Garrett is not a leader. That's why Myles Garrett, defensive coordinator, spoke up and said he supports Myles Garrett speaking out. They're working overtime, putting effort and energy into drowning out the truth that Troy Aikman spoke and holding the Browns accountable, even if it's only Stefanski, rather than fixing the team so they can win. Last year, the Browns made $110 million off of gate receipts, tickets at the gate, coming to the games. They went 3-14. They made $85 million more in 2024 than they did in 2023. And they still went 3-14 and made $100 million at the gate. What are these fans showing up for?